In this video tutorial, we're going to be showing how to simulate and set up different types of foils. That could be cold foil, hot foil, 3D raised foil, rainbow holographic foil, and any combination of. So first of all, let's jump into it. So this is a small business card, and as you'll be familiar, if you've got something small, it's being ripped into TIFFs. They import into the software, we're going to get jagged edges. So if you do have something that's small file, and bear in mind a business card is going to be tiny, so when it zooms up onto the screen, you get pixelation. We can always use the increase resolution button. That's going to re-rip the file at a higher resolution that will be better for this business card. Do bear in mind that the bigger the file and you do the increased resolution, it's going to take a lot longer to rip. So if you have a 12 by 18 inch file, it won't be as quick as what I just showed you there. And it's also compounded by how many layers you have. So it has to build it all. So basically, I got a layer that's called foil. It doesn't know what I want it to be, so it's just giving me a silver flat foil. I can choose whatever color I want, so maybe I want to do bronze foil. So I've gone in here, I've got a bronze foil. Now what can I do with that foil? Well, first of all, we've got surface texture. So it's got like a mottling kind of indented kind of texture. Let me just zoom in there so you can see it. So that's basically like a surface tension that you can get inside foils when you print. Anybody who knows foiling well will be familiar with that kind of thing. So if you want to, you can simulate it, add it in there. By adding surface texture, it also diffuses light, so it kind of like blurs it out a little bit. So just bear in mind, obviously, what it's doing to the material. Metalness is, the easiest way to describe it is you're using metal. It's a foil. It's got aluminium or aluminum particles and things like that inside it. So basically metallized materials, which has this metal kind of quality to it. It's not flat color. So we can pull it right down, and by doing so, we remove some of that kind of grayness, that metalness that's inside the foil. And it also, at the same time, it reduces the contrast ratio. So basically, when we're working with a foil, most people know when you look at a foil, it's got this kind of like metal grey look to it, even though it's got color. We can change the color, speaking of which, so if we want to make it a lot brighter, let's go it's an orange kind of foil, maybe my bronze is slightly grayer. We can fine tune and make that match whatever we want, and you can move it across, obviously, if it's slightly more yellow. So you can set up that bronze foil to work the way that you want to work. So if I decide that that's my bronze foil, I can also change the reflectivity. Is it more like a high gloss mirror, in which case the highlights are going to be bleaching out because you get that real reflection coming in, or is it more kind of like a compromise between the two? So we've now got a foil working as intended. Maybe that's the way my foil looks when I'm working my design. Now what we can also do, we can save that. So you don't want to be putting this in every single time. The idea is you find your foils that you're going to be using, you visually match it, and then you save a preset. So down here, I can go down here and go bronze foil, whatever the company might be. So you've got a list of what it is. So the next time I come back to it, if I basically go in here and play around and I mess everything up, I can always go back and load my setting. If I want to save that as a preset or as a default, I can do so as well. But watch our other video tutorials on how all these saved defaults work, because it's important that you actually understand those, especially when you're working with non-named layers. And by that, I mean if you just call it foil, it doesn't know what it is, so it goes into what we call a catch-all. So it's like a generic folder that says anything that we don't know, we'll throw it in this folder. So if you then bring in something called Richard's foil, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to basically, if I save it as a preset, it will show me as bronze, and it might not be what you want to do. So in this case, if it's an unnamed foil, just basically work with presets. So what else do we do? Well, we can also put foil textures in there. So let's just get rid of that surface texture. I'm also going to bring the lighting down. So if you go into the environmental controls, we've got the lighting positions here. I'm actually going to bring this down. You can see my light moving around. So I can actually move it to where I want it to be on my design to give me a more of an optimum premium look. So if I am doing image captures, or if I'm wanting to set my file up and visualize it a bit better, we can move that lighting around. So secondary lighting is a really good way of working with foils, varnishes, and metallics. Okay, so let's go to the textures. So we added this one down here, so foil texture patterns. So we've built a few of these in. So the most common one with hot foil stamping is one's called we call it Stardust. And it's got like a very fine kind of almost like glittery appearance to it. So we can simulate that. and you have full control over how shiny that is, how reflective it is. Some of them are a bit more diffused, some of them are a bit larger. Flake size, and in this case it doesn't really matter, but you would be able to control the direction of that pattern. So if I was to go into something like hammered metals, so in this case, let me whack it up so you get that kind of hammered appearance, make it a bit larger. So we've now got that kind of a hammered stamped foil effect. We can change the orientation of that hammering. And it becomes more apparent when you start working through some of these. So if we look at brushed metal, if I change the orientation of that brushed metal, we can obviously do it depending upon the grain. So if I know that the grain of the material is going vertical across the sheet or whatever it might be, I can align my design to it. And that's actually a very important thing, because if you visualize a file and you don't know the orientation of the brushed metal and you do it this way, but when you print it, the printers put it on with a long grain and it comes out and it's, let's say, 90 degrees and it comes out that way, then your customer might actually say, well, the metal's the wrong way around. So it's quite important to know these fine-tuning details. Now, we can't obviously understand everything that people might be doing, so this is why we give you the control to set this up. How are you working with it? What are you doing with it? The last couple, this one actually works really well with a silver. So let me demonstrate this one now. It's a very common one with silver foil. So let's go into silver foil. Let's bring up the pattern strength. Let's bring up the size a bit more. So you might be familiar with this one. It's that kind of confetti kind of fragmented foil stamping. So we're trying to visualize these. Now these are mathematics, so we're trying our best to make it work as good as we can. We are working on a holography module that will basically do a lot more crazy stuff, but you'll have to wait for that to come out. Cloud is basically very similar to hammered, it's just a little bit more, well, it looks like a cloud. So there we go, we can set all of this up to work the way that we work with it. And again, if we save a preference down here as a setting, silver flaked, make sure I spell that right, save that preset. So if I am messing around and whatever I want to do, I can always load that preset back up. And I'm always going to go back to what I've saved. So like I said, build it once, save it, recall it when you want to use it. Okay, so that's the basics on the foiling side like that. So what else are we going to do? In fact, let me just move this pattern up again, because I want it quite large for when I'm doing these demos. Okay, so what else do we do? Well, we've got a varnish in there. Let's just switch on sculpted varnish. We're going to move that to the top. So one of the fundamental parts of the V3R software is moving layers about. If you can't move your layer, then it's not very good. And it sounds easy. People think that moving a layer should be easy. It's not. It has to recompute every single layer and every combination underneath it, above it. So when you start moving things around, the appearance of the varnish over color changes, whether it's over foils, whether the foil's underneath a lamination, whether the lamination is a matte lamination. Do check out our lamination video for that. It will explain about how that works with matte lamination over foil, with spot UV over the matte lam. So there's a lot of complexity into it. So moving layers, it is actually a pretty cool thing that we can do. So we've now got our varnish in there. So we've also got a clear toner. Maybe I'm on a Ricoh device, SwissCube, something like a Sharp BP1200S. It could be Fujifilm Revoria, Xerox Irides, that type of digital device, cut sheet. 12 by 18 inch sheet, goes through, clear toner on the end. That clear toner has a different optical property to a 3D raised varnish, like a Duplo or a Skodex. Now I can change the gloss level. Let me just whack that up so you can see where we're playing with. It's in here. Maybe take the texture out of it. Maybe that's what my varnish looks like. So I've got my hot foil stamping for my silver. I've got a 3D raised varnish on my V3R logo, and I've got a clear tone in the background. So you can set up and build a library of all these different settings. So when we are doing a demonstration like this, we like to add a few different things into it. So I know it's all about foil, but when we're talking about things, we like to give a bit of education. Using contrast, clear tone in the background, spot UV 3D raised on the logo, hot foil stamping, brilliant. You're going to get a really nice sensory feel to it when you rub your fingers over it. Now the last one I want to show you is rainbow holographic. So we have the word Visualis3R. So when we're working on rainbow holographic, we get a new section of sliders. So we get the standard ones down here, reflectivity, metalness, surface texture. But now we're going to be playing with the actual effect of the rainbow holographic. Now, it doesn't look very rainbow at the moment, because when you're looking at a sheet of rainbow foil or foil stamping, it predominantly looks silver until you move the print. And that's where our coverage variation comes in. We can actually control the area that we want to be seeing in kind of like silver and how much of it we want to be seeing in color. We can change the vibrancy, we can change things like called frequency. Well, what is frequency? Frequency is basically how quickly the color will modulate and change. So, blues to violets, etc., or blues into greens. So the more higher it is, the faster it's going to change. So let me just demonstrate that now. If I just bring my pattern complexity down. So pattern complexity, as you can see here, we've kind of like brought it down to like a basic kind of, flat color. So let me just play around with this now and you'll see what happens. When I move it, the color is changing very quickly throughout that rainbow, but it's kind of like a flat. There's no real kind of movement to it. It's literally like a flat sheet of rainbow. And that's what a lot of people do. It's kind of basic. Now we've built in complexity to it. So it basically gives a mathematical effect to it. So we can now change how that rainbow effect appears and moves. So let me just whack that up a little bit higher to give it a little bit more craziness. And you can see how it all works. So the idea is fine-tune this to find your sweet spot of what you think rainbow holographic looks like. Let's say it looks like that. Maybe I just want to bring in a little bit more of the grayness from the material. Okay, that's cool. So what about rainbow holographic gold? Well, this was a request from a customer recently. They asked us if it could be done, and it couldn't at the time, so we built it in. And it's quite a simple, elegant approach. We're actually using a color picker. We can go to the color picker. We can pick a gold. We've now got gold rainbow holographic. We could also do 3D raised foil. So down here, we've got a 3D raised section. So really all you need to worry about is the height. Let's just whack some height on there. We've got to bring the bevel down just a little bit so it's not quite as sharp. So now we have holographic rainbow gold 3D raised foiling. We have our textured silver simulation over there. We've got a clear toner and a UV varnish. So a great way to be able to show you how different types of materials work. One file I want to do now, just to quickly demonstrate something, is I'm going to show you our new rainbow holographic clear material. So let me just go and open this up now. Let me find it. It's one that I was working on last night. So again, this is another customer request that we had, and it's actually part of our new holography module that we're building. So we have some code that's coming out that's aimed at basically trying to simulate holograms better. And part of that code we've now brought into this new layer that we're going to be working on. So what this customer wanted, they said, okay, we love what you've got. We've seen everything. We do have a wish list. We would love if you could do a transparent, clear rainbow foil. And what they wanted to do was actually put this onto a they're like bubbles. So imagine like bubbles in a bath. You have a big bubble. So then the bubble becomes that rainbow holographic effect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to bring it over and map it to that effect. And then I'm going to switch off all my color layers and I'm going to put this onto a clear, transparent material. So just ignore what we've got at the moment. Let's just switch all of those layers off. Let's go to the room environment. Let's put it indoors so we can see the room. Let's just go down to our substrate controls. Let's put it onto a clear material. And let's just reset the page so we can see we've got a clear material. So the reason for that is to show you a clear holographic on a clear material would make a lot more sense. So I can go in here, I can play with color, transparency, overlays, and we can see how that clear material with rainbow holographic works. And if I want to put some more vibrancy into it, I can do so. So we've got some areas that will appear and disappear. As you can see down here, that's like clear, transparent, holographic, and it comes back into view and it's like, okay, now we're seeing the color coming through. So we can basically capture light. So we've got a really bright, stonking, it's an English term for that, a really bright really bright rainbow holography type effect that we've got in there. So like in the clear, and at certain angles, things will appear and disappear. So that is what we like to build. When we have a customer that has a great request like that, we will add it. And just to show, obviously, in this case, we are using it on a clear material to show exactly how clear holographic foil would actually work. So if you do have any requests for foiling, varnishing, any type of effects, do let us know. There are things that are on our roadmap, so we might already be working on it. But I'm always open to listen to suggestions.